Kim Potter violated her oath and training when she fatally shot Dante Wright. Prosecutor says defense calls shooting a mistake in first day of trial.
Walk the streets with a loaded firearm. There is no do-over when you walk the streets with a loaded firearm. When you're entrusted with a deadly weapon as part of your job, there's no do-over when you take a young man's life. This case is about the defendant, Kimberly Potter, betraying her badge and betraying her oath and betraying her position of public trust. And on April 11th of this year, she betrayed a 20-year-old kid. She pulled out her firearm, she pointed it at his chest, and she shot and killed Dante Wright. She went out on the streets with the obligation to serve and protect. She had those same duties and those same responsibilities as every other Brooklyn Center police officer. That same fundamental duty to protect the sanctity of life. And she was trained not to shoot an unarmed driver. She was trained not to fire into a vehicle. And she was also trained not to use her taser on a fleeing suspect. And she was trained to be aware of the differences between her gun and her taser. And importantly, she was also trained about the risks of pulling the wrong weapon, and that drawing and firing the wrong weapon could kill someone.
I gotta source this.
Yeah.
I gotta hire for that.
So that's where I'm at with it. Like, I remember when this case first came out, and I was kind of watching it and thinking, man, you know, like, I don't know, you know, it did look, I mean, she did look like she felt horrible about what fucking happened right after the thing. Like, I mean, she didn't look like somebody who was really maliciously trying to do this, which is why she's not facing a murder charge. But, you know, manslaughter? Come on, dude. How long have you been trained? You know the difference in weight between a gun and a taser. Like, even if you fucked up, even if it was a mistake, you took a human life, and it was your recklessness and your, you know, your fucking need for compliance that resulted in that. If you guys haven't heard about this case, just to recap, I'll give you the long and short of it. But essentially, what happened is this police officer, Kim Potter, is charged with killing Dante Wright. Through basically what they're saying is she violated her training and her sacred oath to protect life when she drew her handgun instead of her taser and fatally shot the 20-year-old during a traffic stop in April. The prosecutor told jurors in open statements Wednesday. As you heard up there, it said this case is about the defendant, Kimberly Potter, betraying her badge and betraying her oath and betraying her position of public trust. And on April 11th of this year, she betrayed a 20-year-old kid. She pulled out her firearm, she pointed it at his chest, she shot and killed Dante Wright. But an attorney for Potter countered that the former officer made an innocent mistake in the heat of a chaotic moment when she feared a fellow officer could be killed as Wright tried to flee arrest. He was about to drive away with the police officer dangling from his car, defense attorney Paul Eng told jurors. She made a mistake. This was an accident. She's a human being. She had to do what she had to do to prevent the death of a fellow officer. Eng sought to cast blame back on Wright, telling jurors that Wright would still be alive if he had only complied with police. All he had to do was surrender. All he had to do was stop, and he'd still be with us, Eng said, pounding the lectern for emphasis. Potter, a former Brooklyn Center, Minneapolis police officer, is charged with first and second degree manslaughter in the killing of Wright, an unarmed black man whom prosecutors say had initially been pulled over in the Minneapolis suburb for expired tags and an air freshener hanging from his rearview mirror. When officers discovered Wright had an outstanding arrest warrant for an alleged gross misdemeanor weapons violation, they tried to arrest him. As Wright struggled with an officer who was trying to handcuff him, Potter, who is white, drew her gun and twice threatened to tase Wright before firing a single shot, striking him in the chest. Body camera video captured the incident, including Potter's stunned reaction as she realized she had fired her service pistol, a clip of which was played for jurors in the opening minutes of the trial Wednesday. "Holy shit, I just shot him," Potter yelled to another officer, according to the video. "I grabbed the wrong fucking gun, I shot him." "I'm going to prison," Potter said a minute later, according to prosecutors. "I killed a boy." Wright, who cried out, "Oh, she shot me," as a bullet pierced his chest, drove his vehicle a short distance down the street and crashed. Responding medical personnel were unable to revive him, and he was pronounced dead at the scene. Squad video played for jurors Wednesday showed Potter collapsing on a nearby sidewalk in shock after the shooting, shrieking and sobbing into her hands. Officer Anthony Lucky, who was paired with Potter that day, testified that he had been trying to handcuff Wright and pull him from the car when he heard Potter cry out, "Taser, taser." "That's when I just heard a bang," Lucky testified, adding that he saw a flash and was hit by a projectile in the face. Lucky said Potter cried out that she had shot Wright and become hysterical. Prosecutors in their opening told jurors that Potter didn't do anything to help Wright. She didn't call for assistance, she didn't render aid, she didn't communicate any information about what had happened to her fellow officers who were responding. Eldridge said, pointing to a small army of officers who responded to Wright's crashed car with guns drawn nearly 10 minutes later, delaying medical aid to him. But Wright's attorneys said the situation was more complicated than prosecutors have alleged. Eng said what began as a traffic stop for an air freshener and expired tags led to the discovery that Wright didn't have a license and was driving a car without proper insurance. He said Wright also had an outstanding warrant on a gun charge, leading Potter and the other officers to suspect he might be armed. Ang suggested that Potter's handling of the stop was routine police work and that she and other officers were required to arrest Wright on the gun warrant. He urged jurors to consider Potter's statements in the body cam video of the killing, including her cries of "Taser, taser," as evidence she thought she had drawn the correct weapon. "An error can happen," Ang told jurors. "We are in the human business. Police officers are human beings." And that's what occurred. Potter's attorneys have listed 4 possible defenses they plan to use in the trial, arguing that the shooting was an innocent mistake, that it was an innocent accident, that her perceived use of a taser was reasonable, and that there was a lack of causation. On Wednesday, Eng said they also would introduce testimony suggesting Potter had the right to fire the weapon, even if that wasn't what she intended to do. During jury selection last week, Potter's attorneys indicated that she would testify in her own defense, a decision Potter later affirmed in Hennepin County District Court Judge Regina Chu, who is presiding over the trial. Prosecutors opened their case with an emotional testimony from Wright's mother, Katie Bryant, who recounted how she and her husband had gifted Wright a Buick 2 weeks before his death. The car was still registered to Wright's older brother and was not yet covered under the family insurance. Bryant had given her son $50 for a car wash, but he called her a short time later saying he had been pulled over because of an air freshener hanging from his mirror. Wright sounded nervous, scared, Bryant testified, and she asked him to hand the phone to the officer so she could explain the insurance situation. But when the officer returned to the car, she heard him ask Wright to put the phone down and step out of the vehicle, followed by sounds of a scuffle. The phone disconnected. Bryant testified that she tried calling back repeatedly, but there was no answer. She then called via FaceTime, and a young woman answered by the phone. She was screaming, and I said, "What's wrong?" And she said, "They shot him," Bryant said. She faced the phone toward the driver's seat, and my son was laying there. He was unresponsive, and he looked dead. Bryant testified that she rushed to the scene. Jurors saw body camera video of her interaction with officers as she frantically tried to get her son's crashed car. From a distance, she saw a body covered with a sheet. I didn't want to believe that it was my son laying there on the ground. But I could tell it was him because of his tennis shoes, Bryant said tearfully. Bryant said she began biting the inside of her cheek so much that it left scars, in hopes of waking herself up from a bad dream. It was the worst day of my life, Bryant said, struggling to maintain her composure. Potter did not visibly react to Bryant's testimony. Potter, 49, a 26-year veteran of the Brooklyn Center Force, resigned after the April 11th incident, which took place in the final weeks of former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin's murder trial and the death of George Floyd. Wright's killing sparked fresh unrest across the Twin Cities, including clashes between demonstration and police in a region still on edge after Floyd's murder. The jury of 7 men and 7 women picked to hear the case is predominantly white. The 12 who will deliberate if no alternates are needed include 6 white men, 3 white women, 2 Asian women, and 1 black woman. The 2 alternates are a white man and a white woman. The jurors range in age from their 20s to their 70s. Potter was initially charged with second-degree manslaughter, but in September, prosecutors added a charge of first-degree manslaughter, alleging Potter had recklessly handled a gun when death was reasonably foreseeable. The amended complaint said Potter had received annual training in the use of tasers and firearms during her quarter century as an officer, including a 4-hour taser training course on March 2nd, a little over a month before Wright's killing. Neither charge suggests intent, and the jury does not have to find that Potter intended to kill Wright. That's very important. This is not a murder charge, guys. This is not murder. This is manslaughter. 2 different things. Manslaughter can be the result of reckless behavior without the intent of actually killing somebody. So there's a lot of, there's a lot of wiggle room there. No one will say that she wanted him dead. No one will say that she wanted this to happen. And no one is even saying that she meant to shoot him with her gun, Eldridge told jurors. But the evidence will show that's what she did. If convicted, Potter faces a maximum sentence of 15 years in prison. Prosecutors have asked the judge for an upward sentencing departure or a tougher sentence if she is convicted, saying her conduct caused a greater than normal danger to the safety of other people, pointing to Wright's female passenger in the car and the close proximity of the 2 other officers at the scene. Potter's attorneys have sought to portray Wright as a dangerous criminal who was trying to flee from police, but Chu rejected a defense request to admit a photo of Wright's pointing a handgun at a mirror as evidence, a photo that Potter's attorneys said they wanted to use to counter testimony from Wright's father about his son's life. Testimony will resume on Thursday. So this has been a pretty hot one. Now, I don't think, I truly wouldn't call this murder. This is, me armchair quarterbacking this thing, right? I wouldn't call it murder. I think manslaughter is the right choice. I don't know, if they'll go first or second degree. Usually they're going to stack on the first degree charge to try to get, either a plea bargain for the lesser charge or to try to get a conviction on the lesser charge. Typically, they know they're not going to get the most egregious of charges there. I think she should definitely serve jail time for it. She's got too much training. It's gross negligence. On some level, she needs to serve some kind of time for it. Either let cops do their job or police ourselves. Well, I think that we are letting cops do their job, but we don't count on cops shooting civilians because they're doing their job. Their job isn't to shoot civilians. Last time I checked, every police car I've ever seen has said to protect and serve. I don't know what the fuck you're protecting with that. That's not protecting anybody. I think the fact that our police are armed like military is part of the problem. And they're trained like military. They're not trained like keepers of the peace. They're not trained to, mitigate these circumstances. They're trained like paramilitary groups. And in poorer municipalities, they actually hire military police or ex-military, and they go through a shorter amount of training. And these folks tend to impose their military policing on civilian populations, which should not be a thing. I think on some level she's got to do some time. Now, like I said, I don't think she should be in jail the rest of her life. I don't think it's I'm not a cold piece, man. I realize that people are going to make mistakes. But you know what? Let me put it to you like this, guys. If I made the mistake and accidentally shot somebody the way she did in the midst of a struggle, I would go to jail for manslaughter. There is absolutely no question about it. None. Zero. Corpy says yes. Put your police need guns and act like the army because you have more guns than people, which is just mental thinking about it. Arminius the Wise says still trained cops know taser on the left side. Yeah, that's right. Corpy, I am not an ammo sexual. I'm not a big gun nut. I mean, I'm not against owning them, especially if you like to hunt, or things like that. I don't even mind it for home protection on some basic levels, but it looks like the consensus is that Potter should serve jail time. That's what the consensus is from the chat. Yeah, I agree with you. We don't need to own like these fucking huge ass like anti-tank fucking guns and because I mean you can even own tanks and rocket launchers and shit in our country. People don't realize that. You can own a lot of fucked up ammunition here. Yeah, you have to go through some licensing for the bigger stuff, but you can totally own it. I'd see the value in, I even see the value potentially in owning an AR-15. I don't even really have a big thing against those guns themselves, as a gun. But I think when you start getting into some of the crazy shit that people get into, or owning 80 different guns or 50 different guns, dude, the most you could ever need, the most any household could ever need is 3 guns, right? You got your handgun, shotgun, and a rifle. That's it. If you have those 3, that's all you fucking need. And none of them have to be fancy. This is gonna say, Corpy, I'm much more in the realm of using my fists as well. I've said that before. I said that about Rittenhouse. It's like, motherfucker should have learned how to box or something, dude. He should have learned how to fight. He wouldn't have had to deal with that situation. He could have knocked that dude out if he wanted to. He could have knocked that motherfucker the fuck out. The guy that chased him, Rosengardner or whatever the fuck his name was. Rittenhouse was bigger than him. He could have laid him the fuck out, dude. What the fuck, dude? You did not have to shoot that dude. But when you're in a gun culture, this is what people do. It's fucking ridiculous. Shoot first, ask questions later, And it's because, well, they might have a gun. Well, there's a solution for that. Stop letting so many people who are fucking unstable have guns. Stop letting people with criminal records have guns. Stop letting people who are who've committed acts of domestic violence have guns. There are ways to stop it. And I'm not for the abolition of all gun rights, but I think if you're a fucking bad dude and you've proven to do bad shit, I'm not for that shit. Why should you be trusted now,